I rise this afternoon in strong opposition to the two-year budget agreement before the Senate. This so-called budget deal, negotiated at the last minute, it is now being rushed through Congress with inadequate time for proper scrutiny. And while the devil is typically in the details when Congress negotiates these 11th-hour deals, the flaws in this agreement are evident from merely taking a glance at what is in it. Mr. President, this budget agreement would increase the current Budget Control Act spending caps, which we enacted in 2011 in an effort to restrain Washington's spending, by approximately $80 billion or more over the next 2 years. On top of raising the caps by $80 billion or more, this deal also adds $32 billion in additional spending, totaling $112 billion in new spending over the next 2 years. Yes, Mr. President, $112 billion in new spending over the next 2 years. Mr. President, not only would this agreement allow for increased spending, but it would also raise the debt ceiling through March of 17. Yes, through March of 2017, where we can borrow more money, adding an estimated $1.5 trillion of borrowing. Mr. President, President Obama has continually called for more government spending and a blank check to raise our nation's debt limit with no corresponding reforms or spending cuts. The deal before us today represents a victory for President Obama and his liberal allies, not for the American people. As long as Washington continues to spend far beyond its means and remain on the same unsustainable fiscal track, our economy will suffer. And while I believe, Mr. President, that we should safeguard the full faith and credit of the United States, I also believe that we should do so in a manner that puts our nation on a more responsible fiscal path. We cannot, I repeat, we cannot continue to raise the debt limit without taking responsible steps to tackle the underlying problems facing our nation: wasteful government spending. Taking on more debt to facilitate more government spending is not the answer and is simply unacceptable. Mr. President, hard-working Americans in Alabama and across the country are looking for Washington to have serious conversations about how to tackle our country's $18 trillion debt that's growing. Instead, this deal before us continues the never-ending cycle of bad policies that grow our bloated government, impede job growth, and perpetuate a stagnant economic recovery. Mr. President, I believe that our constituents deserve better than a last-minute, flawed budget deal that not only exacerbates our debt crisis, but it adds more and more to our children's debt. There is absolutely no excuse for continuing to increase our nation's debt. Americans are frustrated that Congress continues to push policies that empower Washington instead of the people of this great country. And this deal is more the same. Borrow more, spend more, be accountable less and less. That's why I adamantly oppose this budget deal and will continue to fight for a smaller, more effective government that puts the American people first.